LeBron James all the way in. Here comes Simmons the other way. 3-on-2. Simmons eludes the defender and lays it in with that. Certainly the length altered that shot. Out of the quick steps.
All right, Bernie, let's talk some more about these teams and what we might see from them in the trade, circus that's afoot right now, Let's go through the Clippers first because I think that one's a little bit simpler. It's been talked about more. We could just gloss over DeAndre Jordan and Lou Williams.
Yeah.
What, do you think they're getting traded?
I think they're going to get traded, whether it's to the Cavaliers or whether it's to whatever team needs it, maybe the Bucks.
Yeah. Well, I think they're clearly in pick accumulation mode right now.
Definitely.
In expiring contract accumulation mode. They want to empty out the roster, get picks so they can have a young, talented core.
Yeah. Very Boston Celtics-esque.
So if they could do some sort of trade I sent this to you last night, and I don't know if we talked about it too much, but the Cavaliers obviously are the team people have talked about the most for the DeAndre Jordan, Lou Williams. I really think they could benefit from those two guys. The more and more I look at that trade and see what they need on their team, a good defensive interior player in DeAndre Jordan and a scoring guard who's not necessarily the most selfish player. I think that you trade a guy like IT who's an expiring contract. He still has upside too. So he has a really friendly deal. And he's expiring, so if they just decide they want to get rid of him, it's open. And then you send, I know they don't want to, but I think it's not a bad idea for the win-now mentality is just to send that Brooklyn pick. Because then you get rid of IT, the drama with all that situation, and that is something that I feel like the Clippers would be interested in, obviously, for that pick. The pick isn't even that valuable, so them just hanging on to it just for the sake of hanging on to it it's kind of crazy, Even though this draft is going to be a good one, why not put all your chips in to try and win this year? Because you don't know what the team is going to even look like next year.
Right. I
think they should do it. And I honestly think if the Cavaliers came with that trade, I think they would take it in a heartbeat too.
Yeah, I think with this, I do think that actually does sound like a pretty good trade. It's a fair trade. IT coming off a hip injury, but is also scoring about the same amount of points he was before he was in Boston, around 15.
Yeah.
Which is where, he's been in his career up until Boston point.
Yeah.
But I do think that this would be a good thing for Isaiah because then he would be obviously the star of the team. He would be the guy that takes the most shots. He would get I think he would get his money, not max contract, but definitely, close to it or maybe a couple mil away from it.
Yeah.
So I think that does make sense for him. And it also brings over DeAndre Jordan, who's more of a defensive guy, which they really need.
Yeah.
And maybe he's the guy that brings in that defensive energy to revamp everyone on the Cavaliers, my bad, to actually play defense. Maybe it'll inspire LeBron to play some better defense because, he's not playing as good as we would like and hope right now. He's kind of been a little bit lackluster in that aspect, but when you have to do most of the scoring yourself and doing all the other things, you obviously want to take a break somewhere, and it's looking like defense is that break for LeBron James.
Yeah, it gets a little exhausting to be the only guy on your team who puts in effort every night. Not only that, but DeAndre Jordan could be one of those guys, along with Lou Williams, honestly, too, because you have two guys who are just spark plug offensive players where DeAndre Jordan isn't necessarily a skilled offensive player, but he can make a play or, just dunk over somebody and it gets the whole team,
Yeah, some putbacks or some quick alley-oops.
Yeah, it gets everybody pumped up and they all want to play together again, and keep dunking and scoring. That is something the Cavaliers need because they don't have any excitement on their team at all. And you can just see it when they play. There's no excitement or joy in the game for that team right now. So switching it up, getting some new star players in for them, and getting a good pick for the Clippers. Something else I want to talk about. Avery Bradley. I actually think he's still going to get traded. That would be my assumption.
Yeah.
The only team he can't get traded to, obviously, is the Pistons.
Yeah, and there's also another rule. It's you can only be traded straight up one player for one player. It's not you can't have a player and a pick for Avery Bradley or something like that. It has to be if you're trading Avery Bradley, you have to trade Isaiah Thomas. For example, that would have to be one of those straight up trades, the salary cap. The salary has to match.
Yeah, but I think that you could see an Avery Bradley for some young player trade or trying to match up some salaries and still clear out some space, I really think that's going to happen. Because why would they need Avery Bradley other than the fact that they would just let him expire if they can't find a deal? It's not a bad idea for that team because they can still be in that accumulation of assets type mindset with that guy. I think that's kind of it for the Clippers. I don't know what else they could do with what they have.
I mean, like we said, the only couple guys they could trade are really like the guys that are really on the block that they would want to move are DeAndre Jordan, Lou Williams, potentially maybe Austin Rivers. I haven't heard anything about that, but he is making a lot of money, and if you want to move that contract, maybe you can.
The thing about Austin Rivers too that makes him really hard is he has a player option next year for $12.5 million. Are they? My question is, would he stay and accept or opt into that player option if they fire his dad? I think he would because he's never going to get that much money anywhere else.
Probably not, and I'm sure, maybe they could trade him to a team that would just want that $12 million for next year and then just kind of burn it off.
Yeah.
The following year. So, like you said, I think when his dad does eventually get fired, I know it sucks to say, Doc Rivers loved the guy when he was in Boston. Didn't really have that much success in LA in terms of, getting to the championships, which is mainly what he was brought in to do. I do think that Austin Rivers will also be going as well because that contract was basically based on his dad. It wasn't based on someone else in the front office.
And we know there's some of you guys who actually think Austin Rivers is decent. I know myself personally, I think he's trash bags. And especially for the contract that he has, he's not worth half that contract. So trying to find a way to get rid of a guy, and he's the same kind of character that Blake Griffin is, where that he causes some issues, not only amongst your own locker room, but he's getting into fights when he's not even in games. They probably don't want that guy around either,
Yeah.
And you can't get rid of Austin Rivers without getting rid of his dad, and it's a mutual thing both ways. So it's just a weird situation all around as far as Austin Rivers is concerned.